All good art exhibit a degree of immersion which sucks the audience into another world. This allows growth for empathy, as now you are seeing things from another perspective. Maybe you are experiencing a fictional world from a protagonist's point of view, making you incredibly attached to them in the process. Or maybe you are asking questions as to why a work of art even exists. What purpose does it serve? What is it trying to prove? What inspired Charles Dickens to write something as brilliant as David Copperfield? What caused Hideo Kojima to make a game about delivering packages across a beautiful but mostly abandoned landscapes? And why is Vincent missing an ear in that one self-portrait? Questions that allow you to get closer to the artist and as a result also form a deeper connection with their art. While playing Disco Elysium, I made decisions that benefited the central character. While reading Moby Dick, I imagined life as a sailor in the 19th century. While studying the paintings of Hiroshi Yoshida, I was teleported to that era, but more importantly, I saw things from his point of view. While listening to the works of Takatoshi Naito, I meditated and found myself wherever the sounds took me. While playing Red Dead Redemption 2, I understood Arthur Morgan and his struggle to be a better man in a world that doesn't always allow him to be one. While playing Ghost of Tsushima, I learned about the meditative properties of writing haikus. And while playing Silent Hill 2, I was sucked into a giant rabbit hole trying to figure out all the ideas and art pieces that inspired the game. You see, I mention all of that to remind you that great art has a tendency to inspire and cultivate creativity in the minds of people. These works of art sometimes feel like a friend extending their hand to you, and should you choose to accept it, they will take you to distant lands and unknown worlds filled with ideas and perspectives that will captivate your own imagination. We'll get to that in a second. Say, for example, you wish to time travel. Well then, pick up a book written a few centuries ago and see for yourself how people used to live without social media or an abundance of information. Understand the struggles they had to face and the sacrifices they had to make. Perhaps that will make you grateful. Similarly, I feel emotional when I listen to the classical pieces from Beethoven. How that man held on to his love for beautiful melodies even though he wasn't able to hear them. This conversation also extends to video games, because what better instrument can convey time travel than outdated tech? Recently I was playing the original Fallout, released back in 1997. This game was built for the 4:3 display ratio, so if you play this today on a 16:9 monitor or higher, be prepared to squint your eyes to see all the tiny details of the virtual environment. But once I got past configuring the game's resolution to my liking, I discovered an ancient relic that deserves its flowers. It hands down revolutionized modern open world RPGs, and while it feels severely outdated today, you can clearly tell that it was still so far ahead of its time. On another note, while playing GTA 4, I got heavily nostalgic when I noticed that the protagonist Niko Bellic carries a keypad phone. And of course he would, the game was set back in 2008 and somehow it perfectly captures the essence of that era. The washed out colors, the distinct art style evoke a certain emotion. And you know, that is actually worth an essay of its own. We'll talk about that some other time. But let's talk about empathy, something that we rarely practice these days. A great advantage of consuming long-form works of art is that it allows you to truly understand someone. A study of Van Gogh's paintings may interest you to learn more about him. After reading through the countless letters he sent to his brother Theo, you would have learned about Vincent's aspirations, why he painted, and the struggles he had endured for so long until he couldn't. Van Gogh's works are a prime example of art directly reflecting a person's life, and as a result of that, studying the life of the person makes you see their work in a whole different light. It's perspective changing, and ultimately it makes you a better human being, one who chooses to understand people rather than judging them superficially. The same idea can apply to different mediums: books, films, music, and video games. For the latter, I think Kojima is a great example. His love for films clearly translates into his video games, and that knowledge may increase your appreciation for his works. Lastly, all works of art embody the idea of escapism. It helps you disconnect from your own situations and scenarios while teleporting you somewhere else or in someone else's shoes. Thus, it encapsulates and is a minimum requirement for time travel and empathy to exist in an artistic context. In video games, immersion is very important. You cannot care for a character unless they are presented in some relatable context. And for that to happen, the character must react correctly to their in-game virtual environment. You can apply that same logic to all the other mediums just as well. I write this essay in order to convey to you that when viewed with the right attitude, art can have a profound impact on those who interact with it. It's not just for mere entertainment, it can be a platform to learn more about the world, its inhabitants, and in the process you will end up learning more about yourself. It can inspire you, captivate you deep enough that you feel like contributing back in return with some art of your own. It can comfort you, make you feel less alone, but all of that is possible only if the art was made by a human being. If it was made by something artificial, why should anyone care? If Starry Night was digitally painted by an AI, why would anybody be fascinated by it? What story is there to tell? If Moonlight Sonata was composed by a machine, why would anyone be impressed? If Moby Dick or David Copperfield was written by ChatGPT, what would be the point of reading them? After all, I would never be able to figure out the experiences that led to their creation. If Stardew Valley was made entirely by a computer, then how would I get inspired? After all, knowing that the game was made by just a single developer gives other aspiring creatives the courage to try, to at least attempt to pursue their own individual projects. So through all of these examples, you understand that real art is not just about the final product. It's also about the people who made them. It's also about the situations that they faced and the interactions that they had with the people around them. And last but not the least, it's also about you. Because what is art without its audience? Without the audience interacting with the art, there is no time travel. There is no empathy. And there is no escapism. Thanks for being here.